Let's take a breath together. I'm going to start with the words of our founder, Ernest Holmes, because I think it's a point of great confusion for us. It's in the section where he's talking about mental and spiritual treatment on page 173. Do not be afraid of this scientific approach. Do not be afraid to set down on one side all of the negative appearances, admitting them as a condition, and on the other side bringing all the arguments one at a time which offset these apparent conditions, and finally realization will come. This idea that we can't recognize a problem has got to go. Because if we can't recognize the problem, we can't change it. Any of us that have ever been parents, nature creates a recognition of a dirty diaper for you. Why? So you can change it. If you're driving down the road and a tire goes flat, there are things that force you to recognize it so you can change it. Otherwise, you continue to drive on a flat tire, rubber will eventually fly off the rim, and eventually your rim will begin to spark from friction and your car will catch on fire. Not a good plan. And yet, when it comes to dealing with one another or things about ourselves that we're not quite sure how to embrace, we tend to have developed this selective skill set of putting on blinders and pretending that it doesn't exist. Metaphysics has gotten really good at spiritual bypass. And spiritual bypass doesn't work. And it shows up in a lot of ways that misuse this incredible science and gift that we have. If you've ever made the statement in my presence, "That's not real," you know that I have some passion behind that. Because here's the thing. To say that anything is not real is to suggest that there is actually the possibility to create unreality, unreal, out of infinite reality. How do you propose we do that? How does something get created out of absolute reality that's not real? It isn't true. It isn't true. What is true is that it's less than it can be. But everything is as real as it is supposed to be at its level of expression. There is no way we can create unreal out of real. We just can't do it. And when we go to that place that says it's not real, we may as well be going la 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 la. It doesn't solve anything. Our whole issue, socially, mentally, spiritually, physically, economically, educationally, fill in the blankly, is that we forget that everything is already included. Anybody that has a precious or semi-precious gemstone knows about inclusions. Little spots, Even, the best diamond in this room, I suspect, has at least one inclusion. It's a little speck of carbon that is within the stone. There's no way to get it out. It's in there. It grew there. It is part of, inseparable from. I use that as a tangible example because here on planet Earth, extended out into the cosmos, extended to that part of infinity that we haven't found yet, it's all included. There's no other place to put anything. See, in infinity, all-encompassing infinity, there is no other place. There's just here. Okay? In absolute reality, there's no construct of time. That does not mean time is not real. It means in the absolute, it's formless. We have utilized the gift of the creative power within us to create a conditioned reality, a construct of time, which we collectively have found necessary to help us order our earthly days. It is a both and. So everything that any of us has ever experienced belongs, or it wouldn't be here. I want you to really get that. If it wasn't a part of the whole, it wouldn't have happened. If it wasn't part of your individual experience, you would not have experienced it. Because none of us tangibly, conscious as in awareness, none of us are aware of every experience that is available. And I invite you to reconsider, those of you who think that I want to experience everything thought, really? Think about that for just a second. There are things on this planet that are not fun to experience. You really want to experience everything? No, thank you. I have a list of things that I'm really okay having never experienced. Those of you who have, thank you for being the test pilots. I'm happy to learn from your mistakes. And sometimes we do make mistakes because we're utilizing a creative process on a learning curve. Okay? We're on a learning curve. And so sometimes we hit it spot on, and sometimes the results that show up are slightly different than we anticipated. Why is that? Well, it's because we have things operating at the unconscious level that we're not aware of, that exclude the very thing that we want. If we are unwilling to go in and find those things and name those things, our chances of shifting them are slim to none. Anybody ever repeat the same mistake and expect different results besides me? So I'm in good company. The reason we do that is not because we're stuck. Stuckness is impossible in a universe that knows only motion. Think about that. When I heard this, it was very empowering because I have spent a lot of time feeling stuck. Here's the freedom. Stuckness is repetitive action. See, it feels stuck in our human experience. It's just repetitive action. We're doing the same thing over and over and over, and we are doing it so consistently without any gap that it just feels like the same thing is happening, and so we feel immobile. And really, we're very, very busy. We do this individually. We do it within our families. We do it within our community. We do it as a society. And we create others when we do that. Any part of humanity that you look at and separate yourself from is your work to do. Because there is no one individual or group or culture or place that you're not included in, or that's not included in you. Because that would require something other than oneness. See, for me to have, this is my place, everything I don't like lives over here, is to suggest that there are two places. Now, on a map, that works. Again, human construct, which is actually condition, effect, form, that we created in order to know where we live. It's as real as it is supposed to be, and it's less of expression. And it's less than truth in the absolute. Both and. But there is no one. I love in conversations with God, I used that book with a group of high recidivist treatment clients. Because one of the things that we recognized was that they come in, they get clean and sober, and they do really good for about 30 days, and then they fall apart. And so we added some educational features, and they stay clean and sober for maybe 60 days. And what we recognized was what we were missing was the spiritual aspect for these folks. Because these were folks that had no spiritual connection. So I took it upon myself to use this book with this group of 10 people, and we read it one sentence at a time. And every time we asked a question, we would stop and discuss that question until everyone in the group had nothing left to say about that question. It took us 2.5 years to get through the book. And it was amazing. And my favorite moment remains the day we got to the line, everybody goes to heaven, including Hitler. We probably, that wasn't even a question, but we talked about that one for a couple of weeks. Because it instantly surfaced all of those beliefs, all of those exceptions, all of those places of separation with a person that none of us have ever even met. And when it gets right down to it, Hitler's behavior was absolutely atrocious. And Hitler's behavior constituted hell. Heaven and hell are a state of mind. They're not a place. The separation that was operating as the thought base of his behavior, and anyone and everyone who followed him, is the purest definition of hell I've ever seen. Heaven is shifting that. And heaven is what is available to all of us, each of us, in every moment. Ernest Holmes goes on to talk about the two different types of treatment. One being the affirmative, where you just know because you know without question. And the other is the argumentative. Now, I've been doing this a few 24 hours. I still use the argumentative version a lot. Because there are still things operating in my human thought processes that get in my way. When Ernest Holmes talks about the argumentative method, he's very clear that we set up the argument. I don't know if you caught this. The arguments, one at a time, which offset apparent conditions. In order to offset it, you have to argue for what is true. For what is true. So every time we find ourselves thinking we're separate from, the offset of that has to be we are one with. And so it's not about focusing on anybody's behavior. We have to get out of this denial that that's not real, that hate's not real, that this is not real, that that's not real. Because the behavior is real. If you say to somebody who just had their home broken into, it's okay, it's not real. You are creating whatever comes next. Just be clear. Whatever consequence comes after that statement is yours. It's real. The chair that you're sitting in right now, pretty real. And this idea of oneness. There's this thing that happens in metaphysics that sometimes I just lose my ever-loving mind over. I'm not going to even pretend that I handle it well. I don't. Is when conversations are becoming real and they start getting uncomfortable, and we're really getting down to some stuff where some deep healing work can take place. And somebody jumps in the middle with, there are no others, there's just one. Then who are you talking to? Is my response to those people. If there are no others, who are you talking to? Clearly, there are others. We are in multiplicity of form. And again, it's the both and. It is about how we understand rather than using spiritual principle, or shall I say misusing spiritual principle, to separate ourselves. Because in those moments, when people are really coming together and they're being vulnerable and they're opening up and they're putting forth that list of conditions that they want to change, and out of our own discomfort, we whack them with nice flowery words, we just separated ourselves from the discomfort. Separation is separation is separation. Doesn't matter how we do it, doesn't matter the wrapping paper. Can we, will we be with oneness in the truest sense? Inclusion literally means everything participates in the whole. It doesn't mean everybody gets to do everything. That's a misuse of the concept. If you came into this lifetime without the ability to see through your eyes, you don't get to drive a car. That's just how it works. That doesn't mean you're excluded. It means there is something operating that makes it unsafe for you to do this. So this idea that inclusion means everybody gets to do everything is incorrect. It means everybody gets to participate in the whole. And so one of the things that we have done to expand the inclusion of people who ride in cars but don't get to drive them is that we have Braille now on passenger side ATM machines so that they can have independence. That's practicing inclusion. I went into Starbucks the other day and I was horrified that a young father was in there changing his child on the bathroom floor because there's no changing table in the men's bathroom. Being part of the solution means politely, kindly, I would like to speak to the manager. There needs to be a changing station in the men's bathroom. I'm not interested in why it's not there. I could care less why it's not there. I'm interested in there being one that's there. So pay attention if you engage in that level of spiritual activism. Pay attention to what's coming out of your mouth, because if you're coming from the place of, how come there's not a men's changing, how come there's not a changing station in the men's bathroom? It doesn't solve the problem. It creates a conversation about it. Do we really care why? Nope. Just needs to be in there. Okay? Pay attention to what's motivating your conversation. Most of us were socialized on planet Earth. I say most because I don't know. There might be somebody here that avoided all that. You might just drop in and pop back out. I don't know. And I'm willing to live in I don't know. And if you're one of those and you're doing that, I want to tell me how you do it. Because I could do that. We have to lighten it up. Our okay. Our political climate right now, and I'm using political to describe something, not to get into your politics, okay, is so divisive. If I could vote without declaring a party affiliation at this point, I would. Because I don't like what's happening in any camp. I just want to be a part of the human race and vote my heart. And we get to do that. And we got to play in the field that's available until we change it. But what we don't have to do is participate at a level of separation. We don't have to make the people we disagree with wrong in order to make our choice. You don't have to make yourself right in order to make your choice. You can just make your choice because it resonates with your being. Because even to make myself right, underneath that, I'm making somebody wrong. Those polarized. Okay. It's a point of separation, and it happens so automatically, we don't even know it's happening. I want to say a couple words about the workshop. It really is going to be a fun, gentle process of beginning to identify some of the stuff that operates as our normal, that creates ways that we very unintentionally exclude ourselves and other folks. We can't heal it till we recognize it. It's not real heavy, it's not any of that. We're gonna play, we're gonna have some ahas, and we're gonna create some strategies on how to shift that if we choose. We're gonna close today's talk with, in your bulletin, you'll see that you have a call and response prayer. And normally, I do the treatment at the end of my talk. Today we're gonna all be included in that. So I'm gonna ask Deborah to come. This actually comes out of a piece that she helped create for Good Friday down in Sacramento. So she will read the part that has her name by it, and then we will all respond. Those of you that are integrated Catholics, this will be a very familiar process.
Everybody got their paper? So I'm going to read the part that says Deborah, and you all are going to read the part that says all. It's called call and response. All right, here we go. There is only one source. It is the essence of all life.
There is only one life.
I am one with infinite source. Its nature knows itself as my life.
That life is God's life.
All the goodness, peace, wisdom, and perfection of God is expressing as my life.
That life is my life now.
God is expressing itself in, through, and as all of its creation.
What is true of me is true of all.
I claim and affirm a realization of perfect peace and harmony, expressing in, through, and as all life.
Together we seek peace and reconciliation, standing with the marginalized and forgotten.
I claim and affirm a realization of perfect guidance and strength in times that are uncertain and when our lives are in transition.
Together we demonstrate compassion and unconditional caring for all of life, in all that we do, all that we are.
I claim and affirm realization of infinite abundance, freely expressing as every life.
Together we lift up all those who hunger and thirst for justice. Our lives and our work are dedicated to creating a world that works for all.
I claim and affirm a realization of infinite supply, freely expressing as every life.
Together we lift up all those who are homeless and displaced, that they might find comfort, that their suffering might be transformed to joy.
I claim and affirm a realization of infinite, expanding its experience of itself as every life.
Together we lift up all children and the youth to bring into being all they have to offer, for they are the future as well as the present.
I claim and affirm a realization of equality, expressing as the celebration of the magnificent diversity of every life.
Together we work for justice, mercy, and humility as its own reward.
I choose to live an experience of gratitude, supporting one another, loving one another, celebrating one another.
We do these works knowing that we serve one another, we serve ourselves.
I experience the gratitude of faith, knowing fulfillment.
Thank you, life.
I release my word, knowing it is fulfilled as spoken.
It is done in my life as I believe.
Together we say,
And so